Well, I think we can chalk that up as a pretty good weekend for Irish sports. Saturday, third win in 5 against New Zealand. Brian O'Driscoll is with us on Monday Night Rugby after 8 o'clock. Stephen Kenny in Ireland, meanwhile, second time in a row, 3 goals away from home. Draw against Portugal, win against Luxembourg. Think that probably settles any debate within the FAI over a new contract. We'll chat to Stewie Byrne and Nathan Murphy on the football show. We'll bring you through some of the post-match audio. Interesting conversations between Luke Holtz and Stephen Kenny. It seems there's a major beef there all of a sudden between Luxembourg and Ireland. I didn't really know it was brewing, but Luke Holtz not impressed with the Irish management team. We'll play all that. And then this hour, Gavin Cooney and Philip Quinn both at the game last night in the very nice Stade de Luxembourg. 53106 is the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. We have Ronan Mullen with us. Hello.
Hi, Joe.
And Richie McCormack. Hello to you.
Joe, you missed the best part of the weekend, which was, in fact, Shamrock Rovers giving themselves a guard of honour at Dalymount Park on Friday night before being beaten 3-1, which is my favourite. And in actuality, if you wanted real drama for the weekend, I'd say the conclusion to the Women's National League probably won't be beaten in terms of what it threw up at the weekend as well, which was just incredible stuff to watch. Peamount, I'm not going to say throw it away because it seems a bit cruel, but in actuality, that's what happened. And then Shelbourne pipping them at the post. Well, Jesus, what a weekend.
Not bad, Ronan. Not bad.
No, and just if Rich is throwing in honourable mentions, I'm going to mention Kiko Martinez. Kiko Martinez, Joe, who obviously knocked out Bernard Dunn a lifetime ago, is once again the world champion. He knocked out Kid Galahad, who was having sort of a homecoming defence on Saturday, and Kiko, as is his want, spoiled the party. So I just thought I'd give him a mention as well.
I did say, I mean, look, people won't be surprised you hadn't planned to start the Newsround today on Kiko Martinez, but seeing as you mention it, it did crop up on Twitter over the weekend, and I was thinking to myself, that name is very familiar. It couldn't be. And here he is still going. What age is he now?
He's in his mid-30s. I think he's 36 now. Okay. But so it just shows you, when he came to Dublin that time, he was a young rapscallion and knocked Bernard Dunn out in the first round, and it wasn't exactly going his way on Saturday either, but he just arrested the tide, and he just got, like, it's a cliche, but the last thing to go for a boxer is the power, and he's always got that. So he just knocked Kid Galahad one big shot to start the round, and that was that. So yeah, just an interesting wrinkle in what was a fairly packed weekend, but there was something for everybody, I think.
Richie, I would think within FAI circles now and around that boardroom, the conversation about Stephen Kenny's contract will be a relatively short one.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think so. The wait and see merchants kind of have to go a little bit quiet after the last 4 or 5 games have just been really good. The upwards trajectory is evident for even the most blinkered of people. 4 clean sheets in their last many games. That performance against Portugal last night wasn't exactly brilliant, but still managing to win 3-0 away from home. Back-to-back 3+ goals away from home, which hasn't happened in God knows how long. It's fantastic. Like, whatever way you look at it, I haven't really gotten the let's wait and see how the spring games go logic, because those games in essence are preparation for the start of the Nations League, and such is the nature of Kenny's contract. It doesn't matter what the performances are. You would think that if he was going badly, if he wasn't, if it was a reincarnated Bob Paisley currently in the job, you would need to get the contract sorted before he begins preparation for a Nations League campaign, which starts in June. Because having somebody start off that Nations League campaign and then sacking them 2-3 games in, regardless of who they are, just wouldn't make much sense. So you would figure that if they have their ducks in a row and if they're happy with the incumbent management team, then they just get a contract in front of them and sort it out for the next 2 years, because it's just logic.
Yeah. There was a carelessness at times to Ireland in possession last night, Ronan. There was a sloppiness at times, and who knows why that happens. But on 62 minutes when Jason Knight came on, I mean, at that stage it had gone beyond just maybe not a uber smooth Irish performance. It had morphed into Luxembourg very much on top, and Ireland needed help in midfield and needed a third man in there to give Cullen and Hendrick a dig out. It turned out, though, Jason Knight had plenty more to offer going forward as well, and 2 assists is quite the return. And the nature of his run for the Hendrick pass, the very assured, composed touchback for the Robinson tap-in, really spoke volumes about the talent that this guy potentially has. So all in all, I mean, I don't know to what extent 3-0 maybe flattered Ireland or didn't, because it wasn't a perfect performance. But the fact remains, Ireland won 3-0 away from home, scored 3 goals again away from home, kept another clean sheet. And when they scored the first, didn't sit in that first, went on and looked a more confident outfit and kicked on, and all of these things happened. So, I mean, it's really impressive what's happened in the last number of months, I think you'd have to say. Yeah,
like you look at the Azerbaijan and Luxembourg games and the score lines, they weren't similar performances, I would say. Like Ireland could easily have beaten Azerbaijan 6-0 that day. Whereas yesterday, if Luxembourg had taken the lead with that, were it not for that errant shove on Shane Duffy, they probably would have been a justifiable lead at that point in the game. But just shows you once the game was broken open by the goal. And while we're getting carried away, Joe, we may as well go full bore. Jason Knight reminds me a little bit of young Roy Keane, the way he's kind of arrives in the box with that intent and kind of affects every third of the pitch. So while we're in full buzz at the moment, I think I'll just throw that in there and heap unnecessary pressure on his shoulders.
Yeah, well, look, I look forward to seeing your Twitter mentions in about an hour. That was a foolish thing to do, Ronan, but good man. I would like to...
Go on.
No. Go on. You go on. For the first time ever, Senator Ronan Mullen's going to be getting abuse and wondering what's all this about. I never said anything about Roy Keane.
I'm just going to say, like, I don't know if it's just the weekend that's in it, but the parallels between Andy Farrell and Stephen Kenny's tenures, like, you recall when Andy Farrell first came into the job and had just succeeded Joe Schmidt, having been in that management setup, and didn't overly change things up for the Six Nations, especially in terms of personnel. As far as I can remember, Rob Kearney was the only one who was sort of sacrificed from the underwhelming performances in Japan, whereas Stephen Kenny did the total opposite. He probably tried to change too much too soon, both in terms of personnel and also in terms of approach. And now it seems to me that both have receded into the middle somewhat, and Andy Farrell has, not... Like, to be fair to me, he stuck by his guns and didn't revert to a more safety-first approach when results weren't going his way. But I think, almost by dint of players departing the scene and also the emergence of new players, most notably Hugo Keenan probably, that he's been forced to change things up more and more. And that's really impressive. Whereas Stephen Kenny, on the flip side, there's more experience across that team. Like, there was talk last week about whether Nathan Collins would come in. He went for Seamus Coleman. James McLean, who I was one of the ones who was criticising him 6 months ago, but has been hugely impressive in recent weeks, and especially yesterday. And there's examples of that throughout the team. So it's probably not all that often that the two teams play the same weekend, but that's probably why it's been drawn into shape.
That quote from Andy Farrell, by the way, just after the All Blacks match, kind of rang true for both managers. I don't know if you saw, he was saying in the press conference, saying, our traditional way as a nation, I think everyone in the Northern Hemisphere really, it's about rolling your sleeves up and getting stuck in. We're better than that. We're skillful. We're able to make good decisions and play a varied type of game, play whatever is in front of us. And that's that's rang true for both managers over the course of the weekend. And there's little things, like we've gone through an international break in terms of the rugby without mentioning like Simon Zebo. Like, remember 6 months ago to a year ago talking about whether Zebo is going to be coming home and whether or not he's going to be in the focus for a World Cup. He hasn't been involved at all. And there hasn't been a peep about it because we've been so good. And there's it's little things like that kind of make you think that, this is actually going in the right direction. And if they can keep this up for the next 2 years, touch wood, God knows what's possible.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with that Andy Farrell quote, I have to say. Been crying out across our lifetimes for more expressive Irish play in all codes and in all sports. We absolutely have a roll up the sleeves and be honest and hurt for your craft attitude, as opposed to be expressive and rely on technique and all of the other wonderful things that we're starting to see a bit more in Irish sport. We're seeing so much more innovation in Gaelic games. We're seeing the football team really take a step forward at the moment under Stephen Kenny, and we'll get on to the rugby performance. But I mean, suffice to say, Brian O'Driscoll is on after 8 o'clock. Chatted to him before coming on air. He described Saturday as the most complete Irish performance he has ever seen. So that will give you a sense of just how good it was. I mean, and look, to the average punter's eye, it was bloody exciting and bloody brilliant as well. One more thing, you mentioned Jason Knight. Sign me up to the Josh Cullen Fan Club. I'm in. I want to be a fully paid up member. This guy has come on so much.
Without wanting to pour extra vinegar in your chips, Joe, I thought last night, like, he's very good. Like, he is very good. I thought the position he's made his own. What I will say for him is if we're going to have somebody on set pieces, I want somebody with a little bit more menace to their delivery than especially what he brought to the table last night, because they thought like it was all very, it was fine. Like, you know, that kind of way, like you can take a corner, you can be his first man. That's grand. You just want him to be able to put it in a danger area, or you want him to be coordinated enough with his defenders and the people attacking the ball to know that he's going to get something on it. And he never, like, not once felt that was the case last night. Like, it might change. It might have just been an off day, but if he's going to be the guy entrusted with set pieces, I just want to see a little bit more. But yeah, like, he's quietly...
Not to interrupt. There was plenty of menace in the goal.
There was, but generally, like, how many corners did we have in the first half?
You said, Your Honour, he said not once. He said not once. You said not once.
There was 6 corners in the first half, and not one of them was one of them was a threat. And the goal was 17 minutes towards the end of the game. Yeah,
that was a fantastic ball in, that goal.
Joe,
listen, get out of the Josh Cullen Fan Club. You're out. You're cut. We don't want you in here anymore. We're not having that kind of talk about Cullen in this room.
And now listen, his quotes before the Portugal game were brilliant. It was in the embargo part of the press conference where he was talking about taking the road less travelled and going to Anderlecht, and he said the package was perfect for him because it's a good environment, it's got a good manager and somebody he can work with in Vincent Kompany. But like, you just want to see stuff like that from players. Like I was watching Adam Ida playing for Norwich in that game against Leeds there the other week, and being thrown on for 15 minutes. Feeding off less than scraps is just no way for a player to develop. And if he's going to stay in England, you would figure that if he's going to get regular football, it's going to be at a championship club. But more realistically, for Adam Ida, it's probably going to be in League One. Or you could take that step and go to, like, look what Ryan Johansson has done. I know it's a different case, but he's gone to Fortuna Sittard in the Netherlands in the Eredivisie and is trying to make his way there. Cullen's gone, obviously, to Anderlecht and ploughed his furrow there. Like, there are other avenues available to players to develop really well and build the technical aspects of your game without having to stay in your lane. And I think if somebody like an Adam Ida could get a move abroad, and it doesn't have to be to a big league, he can be to one of these Benelux leagues or can be to somewhere in Central Europe, like, just go and try something, just try, and who knows what might happen. And Cullen is definitely the embodiment of that.
Yeah, he sure is. He's been exceptional. Really, really good, Josh Cullen. Immaculate on the ball. So we'll talk more at 7:30. We'll talk post 9 o'clock. Curious for thoughts out there, 53106 is the text number. You'll get us at Off the Ball on Twitter. Get in touch. I'll get to some of your texts in a moment. We should start the news round. It is with thanks to Gillette, proud sponsors of Movember. Gentlemen, start your razors. And, well, I mean, this is not a good thing. Absolutely not a good thing. But Joey Carberry's going to get game time. Sorry, Joey Carberry getting game time is a fine thing. I just mean Johnny Sexton's injury. It was a fairly clunky throw here, Richie, so why don't you just take it away?
Jonathan Sexton, Joe, could miss Leinster's first 2 games of this season's Heineken Champions Cup and perhaps more as well. He's been ruled out for between 4 and 6 weeks, having suffered a twisted knee and ankle in Saturday's win over the All Blacks. Jack Carty has been called into the Ireland squad ahead of this weekend's game with Argentina, though in reality, of course, he was on the pitch preparing for that game against the All Blacks on Saturday. Gavin Coombs also returns to the panel. He missed the last 2 internationals, both through illness.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's really disappointing for Johnny Sexton, and hopefully he's back and firing for the new year in Six Nations. It does mean for Joey Carberry this will be guaranteed game time, and Jack Carty gets to have a go. You were thinking a green jersey as well, so that's interesting. On the performance on Saturday, Ronan, it was absolutely exceptional. I mean, it really was. I mentioned what Brian O'Driscoll said to us on Monday Night Rugby. That's on the way after 8 o'clock, the most complete performance he's ever seen from an Irish side. The big question going into the game was, one, would Ireland show the same ambition? And we got an answer to that inside the first 2-3 minutes with their opening efforts, and it was fantastic. But 2, would it be any way as effective against a team like the All Blacks as it was against Japan? And to our pleasant, slight surprise, it absolutely was in lots of instances.
Yeah, and just on Sexton, like, he's emblematic of this whole train in the last almost a decade now. Like, he's beaten the All Blacks 4 times, which was an unattainable sort of zenith for that golden age of players we had, O'Driscoll and O'Gara and O'Connell, who would have given anything just to win 1. And Andy Farrell similarly has 5 wins against New Zealand. So they're no longer the boogeymen in the mind's eye, especially of these Irish players and coaches. So that bodes well. you have to have the obvious caveat that, we need to do it in a tournament, and that's going to be key. But to your point, the performance against Japan could have just lived in isolation. It wasn't necessarily a primer for the New Zealand game in terms of the calibre of opposition, but it showed an intent for this window of how Ireland were planning to play, and they could easily have rolled back on that given the talent New Zealand were bringing to Dublin, but they didn't. From minute one, they took the initiative, and most remarkably, never gave the initiative back to New Zealand. As far as I could tell, the 2 tries New Zealand scored were moments, literally moments, and individual brilliance that kind of kept them within arm's reach or within touching distance of Ireland. And the scoreline, as the point has been made, wasn't reflective of how dominant Ireland were, which is an incredible thing to be able to say about this win over New Zealand.
Yeah. Lads, I didn't think Kenny should have been appointed. I still think it was madness to pre-appoint a manager, but I was at Lansdowne on Thursday and it brought back my faith in the international side. Fantastic. Kenny must be reappointed, says Simon in Dublin. Evening, lads, says Mike. Really enjoyed the rugby this weekend. Was thinking it's ridiculous describing it as a friendly. There should be some type of trophy or ranking points for such a great event like that. Regards, Mike. Well, there certainly are ranking points, Mike. I guess it's not a friendly, it's a test. I mean, not to go too far down this road, but it's certainly a test.
Can we not?
Their best.
Can we just not entertain that
Ireland's
stuff? That's
best.
just silly. It's just so silly.
Yeah.
The friendly, it's only a friendly. It's clearly not. The reaction, the preparation, everything around it suggests it's not. The idea of major tournament rugby union has only existed since 1987, whereas in soccer it's been there since 1930 and before. The playing fields are just so very different. It doesn't even bear talking about. Go on, Ron.
How can there be no understanding for different traditions in different sports? I don't understand how people can cast aspersions over, long dated things like this. This like me, who wouldn't have any interest in cricket, just denigrating the Ashes, because that's a friendly in theory. Do you know what are they playing for?
It's just
Diamond League athletics is only a friendly because it's not an Olympics or a World Championships. It's if you want to stretch it out as far as you can go, you can. It's just silly.
It's just trolling. It's just people willfully winding up people who like rugby. That's all it is, And it was quite interesting post-match on Saturday. You compare the mood with 2018. I felt in 2018 there was a degree of, the mountain has been climbed and we finally beaten New Zealand in Dublin, and this on the back of the Australian series win during the summer and the Grand Slam on St Patrick's Day in Twickenham. This is it, we're world number one. Nobody was saying the World Cup wasn't important, but I just felt naturally there was a degree of the journey is somewhat complete, and obviously the World Cup was going to be important, but there was that degree of finality and, oh my God, it's the perfect year. Everybody breathe out. Whereas I would have said on Saturday, Johnny Sexton came out straight away, and it was the front page comment on all the papers during the paper review yesterday. This can't be the peak. That was his line. This can't be the peak. And there was a degree of, the scars are still there, you would think, and there's an understanding of how badly awry things can go. But Sexton said it, which was no surprise. But what was interesting was Hugo Keenan came out and said it very strongly. This is just the beginning. And then someone like Jack Conan came out, who wouldn't have been, as badly kind of a part of it, or as massively a part of the 18-19 collapse, I suppose, of Sexton. And he was saying, this can't paper over the cracks. Winning makes you soft. We can't get soft. There was loads of mistakes there. We left a load of points behind us, and we have to be really cognizant of that. And he was, it was Jack Conan, we can't get soft now. So I thought, Ronan, there was a slightly different mood. It was very, very, very happy and very, very, very pleased, but maybe a touch less euphoric.
Yeah, and there's a sense of Jonathan Sexton quite understandably trying to will it into existence, I'd say, by putting those quotes on the record that, it'd be very easy to get caught up with it and see this as something of a peak. But the big difference is, whereas that year you're touching on, where the great win in Twickenham and that which preceded and followed, that felt like it was coming, whereas this came out of the blue somewhat. It's not that long ago that there was serious scrutiny on the coaching ticket. And the win against England, it wasn't as if we were building towards that. It was a justification somewhat of their approach, but it wasn't as if if things click, it'll come. It did come somewhat out of the blue, and from that we've built on it and produced 2 very good performances.
Yeah, so it really has kind of come out of it. It's amazing how quickly this has come together. James Lowe 3 weeks ago, nobody was saying James Lowe's set for a huge November. James Lowe has to be in. Gibson-Park, I think there was still a debate about the Irish number 9 externally,
Usually,
whatever about internally, but externally there was. And there was a degree of, well, there's the England game and that's kind of it. And how much can we read into Japan? I don't know. So it was kind of amazing to see it backed up in that kind of a fashion. There's a text in here. So I'd say this crossed my mind as well. Hey lads, I was at the Aviva Saturday. What a performance. I wasn't mad on the singing of Fields of Athenry during the Haka. Thoughts, says Chris. Chris says he found it a bit disrespectful. I don't know if I found it disrespectful. I mean, there's a degree of where, it's supposed to be a touch hostile maybe. But it did feel like not the best thing to do during it, Rich. I don't know if it jumped out to you.
It struck me. I can't say I have a strong opinion on it either way. It was definitely striking in the sense that you don't often see. You kind of go back to the Gatlin Wales kind of stuff that went on in Cardiff a few years back now at this stage. It wasn't at that level. It was just a few people started singing it and then more joined in, and then it became the counterpoint to the Haka. And it didn't do anything, didn't affect the New Zealand performance, didn't make them angrier, didn't inform Ireland's performance whatsoever. It's just something that happened. I wouldn't be keen on it happening again.
No.
But
it's not a traditional. It's not. It's a thing when they're doing the Haka. You cheer and you give it a cheer afterwards, and that's the way it's generally received. And I think that works quite well. I think singing over them doing it isn't the best.
I think what needs to actually be tackled is, and I say this is now an ex-drinker, people who shush in pubs. I think people who shush the kicker in pubs are far worse than anybody who sang Fields of Athenry.
Is that a thing? Yeah.
That is 100% a thing. And people can text in now and verify this because I saw a few of them on Twitter. I think Kieran Cuddihy actually was one of those people on Saturday who tweeted to say people who shush the kicker in pubs are, I'm not going to use this comparison on air, but it was extreme. But yeah, those are the people that need stamping out of sports, not people who sing Fields of Athenry in opposition to the Haka, the Aviva. Shushers, kickers, shushers, first of all, and kicker shushers in pubs especially just need their heads examined.
Yeah, okay.
They're a real thing, Joe, trust me.
I also recall watching Wales against England at the 2015 World Cup and the people in the public house booing the English kicker when he was taking his kick. So it goes both ways.
Look, you got to get involved, So, well, we're nearly out of time. Do you want to blitz through a few, Rich?
Yeah, Stephen Kenny hopes the end of the Republic of Ireland's World Cup qualifying campaign can be a springboard into the Nations League. Last night's 3-0 win away to Luxembourg saw Ireland finish third in Group A and with 4 clean sheets in the last 4 games. And meanwhile, European champions Italy are hoping to secure a World Cup qualification in Belfast tonight. They need to beat Northern Ireland, or indeed better, Switzerland's result at home to Bulgaria to nick top spot in Group C. England are away to San Marino tonight. They need only a point for automatic qualification from Group I. Group F is done and dusted. Scotland already have a playoff spot in their back pocket. And of tonight's game with the group winners Denmark, that's at Hampden, and all of those games kick off at 7:45. Vera Pauw, meanwhile, has added Tom Elms to her Republic of Ireland coaching staff. He replaces the recently departed Eileen Gleeson. Elms is set to combine the job with his duties as the women's under-16 head coach. While Joey O'Brien has been confirmed as Damien Duff's assistant at Shelbourne, the former Republic of Ireland fullback will quit as a Rovers player after Friday's game with Drogheda. O'Brien joined Rovers in 2018 and has racked up 85 appearances for the club so far. And Dean Smith was today confirmed as the new manager of the Premier League bottom club Norwich. The ex-Aston Villa manager takes over from Daniel Farke, who was fired just over a week ago. Norwich 5 points from safety with just 1 win from their first 11 games of the season. And Jermaine Defoe is among a 4-man caretaker panel appointed by Rangers while they look for a successor to Stephen Gerrard. B-team boss David McCallum, his assistant Brian Gilmore, along with the goalkeeping coach Colin Stewart, will also help lead the Scottish Premiership champions.
I'm relieved for Jermaine Defoe. There was only so many more times he could sit next to Roy Keane destroying Spurs and everything they stood for and re-emphasising how pathetic a club they are, as Jermaine Defoe wondered whether or not he should jump in there and say something, and he so far hasn't. So I think he needed an exit strategy, so I think this is the one for him.
Keeping him busy. Meanwhile, Kelly Harrington says she turned down an approach to turn pro from Conlon Boxing, the management company run by Jamie Conlon, and his brother, of course, Michael, recently coaxed fellow Olympian Kurt Walker away from the amateur game. An integration of women's Gaelic games into the GAA has moved potentially a step closer. It was confirmed today that the GAA will oversee the Camogie Association's sponsorship and broadcast rights deals for initially at least the next 3 years.
Very good. Fellas, we are out of time. Ronan, Mullen, thank you.
Cheers, Joe.
Richie McCormack, see you tomorrow. Cheers.
Nice one.
Competition time.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's cash machine.
Another winner in the cash machine, Grace Moriarty from Mitchelstown, County Cork. She knew the correct amount in the cash machine was €5,184.29 when we called her just after 3 o'clock today. More money to be added tomorrow, so make sure you're listening at 8 a.m. to News Talk Breakfast when Shane and